Jack Thompson had always dreamed of escaping the suffocating grip of city life, with its endless honking horns, towering skyscrapers that blocked out the sun, and the relentless grind of a 9-to-5 job that drained his soul a little more each day. At 35, he was a software engineer by trade, but his heart yearned for open fields, fresh air, and the simplicity of rural living. So when he received the news that his estranged uncle, a reclusive farmer named Elias, had passed away and left him a sprawling farm in the remote hills of Vermont, Jack didn't hesitate. He quit his job, packed his belongings into his beat-up truck, and drove across the country, imagining a life of planting crops, raising animals, and finding peace in solitude. Little did he know that the farm held secrets far beyond overgrown fields and dilapidated barns, secrets that would upend his world in ways he could never have imagined. As he pulled up the dusty driveway on a crisp autumn afternoon, the property looked exactly as described in the lawyer's letter. 100 acres of fertile land, a charming but weathered farmhouse, a large red barn, and several outbuildings scattered across the rolling hills. The air was thick with the scent of pine and earth, and birds chirped merrily from the trees. Jack stepped out of his truck, stretching his legs after the long drive, and took a deep breath. "This is it," he muttered to himself, a smile creeping across his face. "My new beginning." He grabbed his duffel bag and headed toward the house, keys jingling in his hand. The front door creaked open, revealing a cozy interior frozen in time. Faded wallpaper, antique furniture, and the faint smell of wood smoke from the fireplace. He spent the afternoon unpacking, exploring the rooms, and making a mental list of repairs. By evening, exhaustion set in, and he collapsed onto the old 4-poster bed in the master bedroom, drifting into a deep sleep as the wind whispered through the cracks in the walls. The next morning, Jack woke to the sound of distant rumbling, like thunder rolling across the hills. He rubbed his eyes and glanced out the window, expecting storm clouds, but the sky was clear and blue. Shrugging it off, he brewed a pot of coffee and stepped outside to survey his new domain. The farm was vast, with fields stretching out toward a dense forest at the edge of the property. He decided to start with the barn, figuring it might house some tools or equipment left behind by his uncle. As he approached the massive structure, the rumbling grew louder, vibrating through the ground beneath his feet. "What the hell?" Jack whispered, his heart quickening. He pushed open the heavy barn doors, and what he saw inside made his jaw drop. There, lounging on enormous piles of hay that reached the rafters, were 3 women. But not just any women. They were giants, each at least 15 feet tall, their bodies curvaceous and powerful, clad in makeshift dresses sewn from what looked like old barn tarps and curtains. Their skin glowed with an otherworldly sheen, and their eyes sparkled with amusement as they turned to look at him. The first one, with long flowing red hair cascading like a waterfall, sat cross-legged, her ample bosom straining against the fabric of her top. Beside her was a blonde with piercing blue eyes, her muscles toned from what must have been years of farm labor. And the third had raven black hair, her features sharp and seductive, with a sly smile playing on her lips. They were breathtakingly beautiful, but their size made them terrifyingly imposing. Jack stumbled back, his mind reeling. What are you?" he stammered, his voice barely above a whisper. The redhead leaned forward, her massive hand gently but firmly grabbing his arm to steady him. "Easy there, little one," she purred, her voice deep and resonant, echoing through the barn like a gentle earthquake. "We've been waiting for you." The blonde chuckled, her laughter booming. "I'm Lila," she said, pointing to herself. "This here's Ruby," she gestured to the redhead, "and that's Serena," nodding at the brunette. "We've been living on this farm for, a couple of centuries now." Jack's eyes widened. "Centuries? That's impossible. My uncle never mentioned—" Serena interrupted with a wicked grin. "Your uncle knew about us. He was our companion, you might say. Kept us secret, fed us, and in return we helped with the farm. But he got old and now you're here, the new owner." Jack tried to process this, his brain struggling to catch up. Giants living on the farm? It sounded like a fairy tale gone wrong. But how? Why? Ruby released his arm and sat back, her enormous form shifting the hay beneath her. "We're not from your world exactly. We're what you might call dryads or earth spirits bound to this land. But we've taken human forms, well, mostly human, just a bit larger. The farm's magic keeps us here, and we've grown accustomed to certain arrangements with its owners." Lila leaned in closer, her breath warm against his face. "Arrangements that involve more than just chores." Serena's eyes locked onto his, dark and intense. "You're going to have sex with us," she said bluntly, her words hanging in the air like a command. Jack blinked, sure he had misheard. "Excuse me?" The three women exchanged glances and burst into laughter, the sound shaking the barn. "You heard her," Ruby said, wiping a tear from her eye. "It's part of the deal. The farm thrives on our energy, and we need a human connection to sustain it. Your uncle understood that. He was happy here." Jack felt a mix of fear, confusion, and an unwelcome stir of arousal. These women were stunning, their proportions exaggerated in the most alluring ways. Curves that could crush a man yet promised unimaginable pleasure. I just bought this place. I didn't sign up for this." Lila stood up, her head nearly brushing the barn ceiling, and extended a hand that could envelop his entire body. "Come on, let's show you around. You'll see it's not so bad." Reluctantly, Jack took her hand, feeling the warmth and strength in her grip as she gently pulled him deeper into the barn. They led him to a hidden section behind the hay bales, where a makeshift living area had been set up. Enormous cushions made from stacked mattresses, a table carved from a massive tree trunk, and shelves lined with jars of preserves and herbs. As they talked, Jack learned more about their history. They had been guardians of the land since before the farm was built, awakened by ancient rituals performed by settlers centuries ago. His uncle had discovered them accidentally, much like he had, and instead of running, he embraced the life they offered. In return for their companionship, the farm produced bountiful harvests, the animals were healthy, and prosperity followed. But the companionship was intimate, a ritual that bound them all together. "It's not force," Serena explained, her voice softening. "It's mutual. We need you as much as the land does." As the day wore on, Jack found himself drawn into their world. They showed him how they tended the fields at night, their giant strides covering ground in minutes, lifting boulders as if they were pebbles. Ruby demonstrated her ability to make plants grow with a touch, vines curling around her fingers like affectionate pets. Lila shared stories of past owners, some who fled in terror, others who stayed and lived fulfilling lives. Serena, the most enigmatic, hinted at the pleasures awaiting him, her words laced with seduction. By evening, they gathered around a fire pit outside the barn, roasting vegetables the size of watermelons. Jack sat on a log, feeling dwarfed but increasingly comfortable. The wine they poured, fermented from berries they grew themselves, was potent, warming his veins and loosening his inhibitions. "So what if I say no?" he asked, half joking. The women paused, their expressions serious for the first time. "The farm would wither," Ruby said sadly. "We've seen it happen. Without the bond, our power fades, and so does the land." Lila added, "But we won't force you. That's not our way." Serena leaned close, her lips brushing his ear. "But trust me, you'll want to say yes." As the fire crackled and stars emerged overhead, Jack felt a pull he couldn't deny. These women were more than giants. They were embodiments of the earth's wild beauty, fierce and nurturing. The thought of intimacy with them terrified and excited him in equal measure. That night, as he lay in bed, their words echoed in his mind. The rumbling he had heard wasn't thunder. It was their laughter, their movements, their life force pulsing through the farm. He tossed and turned, visions of their bodies filling his dreams. The next morning, he returned to the barn, determination in his step. "Okay," he said, looking up at them. "Tell me more about this bond." The women smiled, and Ruby extended her hand again. "It starts with trust," she said. They led him to a secluded meadow behind the barn, where wildflowers bloomed in vibrant colors. There they began to reveal their true nature, shedding their clothes to show skin marked with faint glowing runes, symbols of their ancient origins. Jack's heart raced as they surrounded him, their presence overwhelming yet gentle. Lila lifted him effortlessly, placing him on a soft bed of moss. "Relax," she whispered. "Let us show you." What followed was a whirlwind of sensations, hands that could encompass his torso stroking his skin, lips the size of his palm pressing against his, bodies that enveloped him in warmth. It was unlike anything he had experienced, a blend of power and tenderness that left him breathless. Ruby's touch was nurturing, healing old wounds he didn't know he had. Lila's was playful, teasing him to the edge of ecstasy. Serena's was intense, demanding and giving in equal measure. Hours blurred into a tapestry of pleasure. the bond forming not just physically but spiritually, as if the earth itself approved. By the time the sun set, Jack was exhausted but exhilarated, the farm seeming more alive than ever, crops sprouting overnight, animals gathering curiously. He had crossed a threshold and there was no going back. But as he drifted to sleep in the barn, cradled in Ruby's arms, a nagging doubt crept in. What if this was too good to be true? What secrets did these giants still hold? Little did he know, the real challenges were just beginning. As the days turned into weeks on the farm, Jack immersed himself in this extraordinary new life. The initial shock of discovering the three giant women fading into a rhythm of wonder and intimacy, the bond they had formed that first night in the meadow had awakened something primal within him, a connection to the land that made every sunrise feel like a rebirth. The farm flourished under their combined care. Fields of corn grew taller than ever, orchards heavy with fruit, and the animals thrived with an almost magical vitality. Ruby, with her nurturing spirit, taught Jack the secrets of the soil, showing him how to channel energy through his hands to encourage growth. "Feel the pulse of the earth," she would say, her massive fingers guiding his over the dirt, and he'd watch in awe as seedlings burst forth. Lila, the playful one, turned chores into games, challenging him to races across the fields where she'd let him win just to see his smile, her laughter echoing like thunder. Serena, ever the enigma, deepened their nights with passion that bordered on the mystical, her dark eyes holding promises of ecstasy and mystery. Yet beneath the surface bliss, Jack sensed undercurrents of something more profound and potentially dangerous. The women spoke in hushed tones about the cycle, an ancient rhythm that governed their existence, hinting that their bond required renewal through increasingly intense rituals. One crisp morning, as Jack milked the cows in the barn, now shared openly with his giant companions, a strange fog rolled in from the forest, thick and unnatural. The animals grew restless, lowing and stamping their feet. "What's happening?" Jack asked, setting down the bucket. Ruby frowned, her red hair whipping in a sudden wind. "It's the veil thinning. Happens every few moons. Other spirits might try to cross over." Lila grabbed a massive pitchfork, her muscles flexing. "We've dealt with it before. Stay close, Jack." Serena's eyes gleamed with excitement. This could be fun. As the fog enveloped the farm, shadowy figures emerged, ethereal beings smaller than the giants but still towering over Jack, with forms that shifted like smoke. They were intruders from the spirit realm, drawn by the farm's vibrant energy, seeking to claim it for themselves. A battle ensued, not of fists but of wills and magic. Ruby summoned vines from the ground, ensnaring the shadows. Lila charged forward, her strength scattering them like leaves. Serena wove spells with her words, banishing them back into the mist. Jack, feeling out of his depth, discovered his own role in the bond. He could amplify their power through touch, channeling human vitality to strengthen their defenses. As he placed his hands on each of them in turn, a surge of energy flowed, turning the tide. The fog lifted and the intruders vanished, leaving the farm unscathed. Exhausted but victorious, the four collapsed in the meadow, laughter mixing with heavy breaths. "You were amazing," Jack said, looking up at them with newfound admiration. Ruby pulled him into her embrace. "We couldn't have done it without you." That night, the renewal ritual was more intense than ever, their bodies intertwining in a dance of gratitude and desire. Jack lost himself in the sensations, Ruby's soft curves cradling him, Lila's playful nips and caresses, Serena's commanding grip guiding him to heights of pleasure. It was as if the battle had heightened their connection, making every touch electric. But in the afterglow, Serena revealed a truth that chilled him. "The cycle demands balance," she whispered. "We've protected this land for centuries, but our power wanes without a true anchor. Your uncle provided it for a time, but he grew weak. You must choose to stay forever, or the farm and us will fade." Jack sat up, heart pounding. "Forever? I left my old life, but this—" Lila stroked his back. "It's not a prison. It's a paradise," Ruby added. "But there are risks. If you leave, the bond breaks and we become vulnerable to those spirits again." Over the following days, Jack grappled with the decision, exploring the farm's hidden wonders to weigh his options. They showed him underground caverns beneath the barn, glowing with crystals that pulsed like heartbeats, repositories of the land's magic. There they shared more of their past, how they had been human once, transformed by a curse or blessing depending on the tale, to guard the earth. Jack felt torn. The city called faintly, a echo of normalcy, but the giant's world was intoxicating. Tensions rose when another threat emerged. A developer from the city, sniffing around the property, unaware of its secrets but intent on buying it for a resort. "I won't sell," Jack declared. But the man persisted, offering sums that could set him up for life. The women grew anxious, their sizes making confrontation risky. Exposure could mean disaster. In a daring plan, they used their magic to scare him off, creating illusions of ghosts and quakes. Jack played his part, feigning ignorance, and the developer fled, vowing never to return. The victory solidified Jack's resolve. "I'm staying," he announced that evening as they gathered by the fire. The women enveloped him in hugs that could crush mountains, their joy palpable. The final ritual sealed his choice. A night of unbridled passion under the stars where boundaries blurred, and pleasure became transcendence. Ruby's tenderness healed his doubts. Lila's energy invigorated his spirit. Serena's intensity bound their souls. As dawn broke, the farm shimmered with renewed life, flowers blooming in winter-defying colors. Jack knew he had found his true home, not just in the land, but in the arms of these extraordinary beings. Yet as peace settled, a distant rumble hinted at future adventures, perhaps more spirits or deeper mysteries. For now, though, he embraced the extraordinary, ready for whatever came next.